Hi, my name is Dr. Rob Ward. I want to welcome you to another video segment of the redoxdoc.com video lecture series. This topic tonight is about peripheral neuropathy. This is a common problem, and I run into it all the time in my clinical practice, most commonly seen with diabetics, but I have people who are over the age of 60 who are beginning to notice they're losing their balance, their sensation, their feet is different, and they can tell something's changing. And they get sore feet when they hike a lot, things like that. So I want to talk to you about what it is, what research shows us about science behind the causes of this, and then describe some redox solutions. So what is peripheral neuropathy? It has to do with the nerves in our extremities or on the surface of our body. And basically they experience damage and they fail to work properly. So why does this happen? Well, diabetes leads to this, causes nerve damage. We'll explain kind of how. Vitamin deficiency, especially vitamin B12 deficiencies. Medications like chemotherapy or certain antibiotics like Cipro and Levaquin. Trauma can cause damage to nerves where it might be a decreased blood supply. Let's say you had an injury and there wasn't enough blood getting to your leg or something. It could damage the nerves. Maybe you're getting some radiation therapy for cancer, and that part of your body, the nerve endings, are very vulnerable to radiation waves, and so they are damaged in the process of killing the cancer cells. Remember, nerve cells are very special in what they do. They're capable of transmitting electrical messages. It's such a magical thing, but they're also the most sensitive part of our body to injuries and toxins. So it's really important that we take care of ourselves and protect us because these things, once they're damaged, they don't like to heal very quickly. We give up the repair quickness of the nerve endings because of their wonderful specialized functions. For example, the lining of our airway, the lung endothelial cells, they'll replace themselves in hours to a day. The lining of our intestinal tract, those cells replace themselves in 3 days. It takes years to replace nerve ending cells. They're very, very slow to heal. All right, other things that can cause damage would be alcohol, excessive alcohol intake. Celiac disease is known to influence a peripheral neuropathy. A virus, a bad viral illness can cause neuropathy. And we just don't know why, called idiopathic. And we haven't figured it out yet, so we just call it idiopathic. So what's the pathology behind all of this? What's going on? Well, it turns out that a nerve, if you took a nerve, it's like a rope and you cut it on the end, it would look kind of like this. And the nerve ending, the actual nerve itself is on the inside and there's a sheath around it. It's like an insulation on a wire. And we need this insulation to help those nerve cells stay well. It's called the myelin sheath, M-Y-L-I-N. Well, what happens is due to these things, the myelin sheath starts to break down. The cells that make up this sheath just start to fall apart. They don't do their job. They don't hold together, and they start to get beat up and fall apart. So, for example, if you had shingles, it's a virus infection. It has to do with the nerve ending, and it's very painful. And so there's an outbreak of a rash on the skin, but it's because that's where the nerve ending is. And so the neuritis of shingles is really a neuropathy. And so the nerve sheath just gets wiped out in that condition. And that's why it's so painful. And so what the nerve does is it keeps trying to work, but it's sending a wrong signal to the brain. So these are sensory nerves we're mainly talking about. There are motor neuropathies, but sensory neuropathy is kind of what we're kind of focused on tonight. So the information starts going back to the brain. There's something really wrong. And all of a sudden, you got numbness or burning or tingling or stabbing pains, all kinds of different sensations coming from a neuropathy due to one of these causes. So there's a loss of sensation. Even muscles might twitch. There can be loss of muscle because it's not getting any nerve input. Bone loss can happen. There's pain, burning sensation. If the neuropathy has to do with the nerves that control our blood pressure or our balance, that's the automatic nervous system, that can cause real trouble when we go from a lying to a standing position. If you have a neuropathy involving the automatic nervous system, the autonomic system, you got trouble because you're going to pass out. Well, what can we do about this? Well, traditionally, the treatment for this in the medical world is really terrible. We give medications to dull the sensation so it doesn't bother you. Medicines like gabapentin or Cymbalta. We try to get to the root of the cause and correct it. If you've got a B12 deficiency, there's a blood test that'll prove that, and you can get B12 replenishment like a shot, and it may reverse that neuropathy if you catch it early enough. If you're a diabetic, you need to keep your blood sugars under control, or this is going to be a problem. Guarantee it. 50% of people with diabetes actually have some form of neuropathy in their life. So we don't have good therapies here. This is what's so exciting about tonight's talk, because there are ways to get at this at a cellular level, and we've come to understand this over the last 30 years. So let me share a couple of studies that I found in my literature search as I sort of did my homework on getting ready for this talk. One study came from 2014, and they looked at chemotherapy-induced neuropathy. So CIPN, chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy. And in this study, they focused on understanding the nature of oxidative stress as it pertains to mitochondrial dysfunction. And as the mitochondria fails to produce energy, the powerhouse of the cell, and as there's more and more oxidative stress to the cell, the buildup of toxins and the breakdown of the mitochondria both start to lead to this constant buildup of oxidative stress, and all of a sudden the cell is barely hanging on to life. Maybe it's a cell, this nerve cell is in charge of letting you know whether or not you need to pee. Well, it's those nerve cells, if they're getting sick enough, they're just going to sit there, and you won't know until your bladder's so full you're about to bust. And so those cells, if at some point they may just die. It's called apoptosis. Pretty sad. But before they died, they were just doing nothing, just hanging on to life, not doing their job of sending information. So there's all this metabolic changes that happen. And so in this study, they actually showed that in chemotherapy patients, when patients did those things that improved the presence of antioxidants in the cells, like eating various nutraceuticals or fresh vegetables and nutrients like that, they were able to cause their body and their cells to produce more of their own inside antioxidants. And that went a long way to protecting themselves from the chemical-induced neuropathy. Really great little study. I found another one back from 2008 on diabetic neuropathy. And they mentioned this 50%. It's at least that, if not more, today compared to 2008. But diabetic neuropathy is really a big problem. So what's going on with that is that when the blood sugar is really high, the Krebs cycle, remember that's what's going on inside the mitochondria to produce energy, is overloaded with sugar. And it overloads this electron transport chain so much so that there's a buildup of oxidants. You know, we have oxidants and reductants, and they're supposed to be in a nice little balance, positive and negative. Everybody's happy. Your redox potential is good. Well, you build up these superoxides, for example, and you're going to have mitochondria just stressed out. There's cellular oxidative stress. Cytokines are being produced, and all of a sudden the cell stops working right, and the cell starts to break down. There's a destruction in the myelin sheath, and you are having burning feet, walking on coals like you see in the TV commercials. Well, what are the solutions that we have? So if you're doing your very best to correct the underlying problems and you still have trouble, we'd like to prevent this from happening in the first place. My suggestion is to go back to the very core of our cellular functions. And there's really nothing that's further upstream in our cell health, the applications to cell health, than to provide the body with adequate redox molecules. They're produced in the Krebs cycle by the mitochondria normally, but today we can supplement those. And so number one would be supplement with redox molecules. Now, you may want to put those redox molecules right where they need to be. So if you've got burning feet, you can put a topical redox supplement right on your feet. If you've got a problem on your back leftover from a shingles or something, and it just still hurts, you can put topical redox molecules there, and you'll begin to support those cells in recovery. It takes a long time, but you'll get there. My belief is that if we do this on a regular basis, going forward each and every day, if we encounter problems in our life, we're going to be prepared to maintain the proper redox potential in our cells. And so that's number one. Number two, you want to make sure that your cells are hydrated. Without adequate water stores, nothing works right. Our body is constantly becoming dehydrated, especially if you live in Utah, where there's low humidity. But we're this bag of water that we need to protect. And so if our cells are lacking water, most of our chemical reactions require water. So we are at least 70% water. So hydration is critical. And so most adults need between 2 and 3 liters of water a day at least. So that is probably my next thing in line. And then thirdly, to make sure that we're providing our body with a proper balance of nutrients. And especially pertaining to people with delicate neuropathic issues, the nutrients that assist us most are the nutrients that are known to help nerves heal. So foods that contain lots of B vitamins, C vitamins are critical. Now, they're found in fresh fruits and vegetables, but you may want to take supplements like a B complex vitamin. B12 can be a supplement. You can take it orally or you can get injections, but having adequate nutrients provides the body the building blocks to work with. So at a molecular level, we're providing support with these redox molecules. Again, water, these are tiny little 3-atom molecules. Then we get these macronutrients that are gigantic that the body breaks down and uses. It's kind of in a hierarchy. And then, the other things that matter are rest. During sleep, we do an awful lot of healing. The majority of our healing happens at night when we're in deep, restful sleep. And then lastly, exercise to stimulate the body to action. And it helps to express much of our DNA. Our genetic potential is enhanced with exercise. So redox solutions, starting from a molecular level, working to a lifestyle level, those things will help. And so I hope this is giving you some insight into neuropathy, which is sometimes a very hopeless topic. But I want you to know that there is hope. And I have witnessed patients in my own practice who used redox supplementation to really change the course of their health. I had a patient who at once was shuffling her feet with a cane, and within 3 months of supplementing redox molecules was able to walk heel toe with no cane. And that was the major thing she changed in her life. So there is all kinds of possibilities, even with terrible neuropathy situations. Hope that's helped you. See you at the next video.